Welcome back. Now, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to appear before the National Assembly today to address the House on issues surrounding the insecurity in the nation. The president was summoned last week by the House of Representatives over the rising insecurity challenges in the country, and more than 40 farmers were killed at the Zabamari in Borno State by Boko Haram. But the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, said yesterday the National Assembly lacks the constitutional powers to summon President Muhammadu Buhari over worsening security situation in the country. He argued that NAS had no constitutional powers to envisage or contemplate a situation where the president would be summoned to explain operational use of the armed forces. Now, security expert Kabir Adamu joins me to share his perspective on this. Hello, Mr. Kabir Adamu, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, do you think the president is going to honor the National Assembly's request?
Indications at this moment appear that he's not likely to honor the invitation. You've mentioned the statement by the Attorney General of the Federation, one of his closest aides or cabinet ministers, if I use that word. And then, of course, someone who is seen as a member of the inner caucus of Mr. President. Now, that statement by the Attorney General states clearly that the advice he and others have given Mr. President is that he shouldn't appear. Then you remember when the governors met him, an outcome of that meeting too was that they are not in support of him appearing. And then the Senate too mentioned that they were not together with the House of Rep in the invitation. So the obvious indication is that the president has been advised not to attend. So I think we are in a situation where we'll probably be left, and I think the Speaker of the House of Rep has actually mentioned this, that it's at the discretion of Mr. President. So in spite of the motion and the demand by at least we're sure of the House of Rep, and to an extent the Senate, what is left at the moment is whether the president would, at his discretion, attend or not. But his advisors clearly have told him not to.
Now, what questions should the Nigerian Parliament be demanding answers, today, if he accepts the invitation, that is?
Well, we are faced with a situation where we are disparate elements. There are centrifugal forces at play in Nigeria that are unfortunately driving a lot of the insecurity issues that we're faced with. There's no region. I mean, if you go by the 6 geopolitical zones that we have, there is none of them that you would pick that you cannot find these centrifugal forces at play. So if it's the north, you've got banditry, and I mean, there is a theory out there that says the banditry has an objective. And then if you pick the south, the issues around militancy and others. And then, of course, in the southwest, all the gang violence and criminality that we're being faced with. And then, of course, there is this, sort of coalescence of the political forces into a regional bloc. And all of these are sort of leading to the kind of security issues that we're facing. So, I mean, one of the most critical elements I'm hoping the Parliament would speak with Mr. President is how he's managing these disparate elements and how he would lead a government that would enhance diversity, that would enhance the togetherness that his government has been preaching, and then lastly, that would seek to empower the majority of Nigerians, the 40 plus 120 million youths. Now, beyond this, there is the issue of the security sector itself, the security architecture. We have 27 ministries, departments, and agencies that are involved in security in one form or the other. Unfortunately, it appears we've given too much prominence to the military. So I'm hoping that the Parliament would ask Mr. President questions around coordination, questions around cooperation among these ministries, departments, and agencies. And hopefully, and this is actually the work of the Parliament, how do they measure the performances of these ministries, departments, and agencies in terms of security? If lives and properties of Nigerians are being lost, then clearly there is a failure in terms of the performances of these ministries, departments, and agencies. So who takes the responsibility, accountability? So those are the kind of things I'm hoping I'll hear when Mr. President appears. Now, Attorney General has mentioned that security requires confidentiality, and he's right in that regard. So there is nothing wrong with having what I would call an open session where Nigerians are able to see part of what Mr. President, tells the Parliament. But then if it reaches a point where that confidentiality is required, then they can go into a closed-door session so that at least the issues are tackled. At the end of the day, what the Nigerian wants, and I'm sure of this, is improved security.
Yes. Now, we recently heard that the traditional rulers are being called upon to coordinate with governors and people in the leaders in their areas. Do you think the traditional rulers will help with the issue of insecurity going on right now?
Yes, there is no insurgency, and a lot of what we are faced with are aspects of insurgency in the Northeast and to an extent in the Northwest. Now, there is no insurgency, counter-insurgency campaign or counter-terrorism campaign that is won without the support of the people that you are waging the war. And currently, unfortunately, in Nigeria, we are faced with a situation where you have those that are, leading the warfare on the one hand, and then you have the populace, on another side altogether. A good example is this 43 farmers that were killed. You have the military suggesting that those 43 farmers were collaborating with Boko Haram. And then you have the community coming out to reject that suggestion. So clearly, there is a huge divide between the people and the military. Now, how can traditional rulers close that divide? The people trust them. The people respect them. They live side by side with the people. So incorporating them into the counterterrorism campaign is the way to go. And speaking about that, we have amazing policies that we have developed as a country. One of them is the revised National Security Strategy 2019. Then we have the Counter-Terrorism Strategy 2016. And name them. There is the new Police Act. All of them beautiful documents. If you pick them on their own, there are nowhere in the world that those documents would not work and will not be acclaimed as good documents. But they are left unimplemented. So what is the challenge? The challenge, I would say, is the lack of an implementation framework for these documents. And so how do we take these documents from the federal level where they are lying and, to use the Nigerian parlance, gathering dust? How do you take them from those, drawers where they're gathering dust down to the average person in the village, in the market? It's through these traditional rulers. So I would expect that in the next few weeks, months, based on this meeting by Mr. President with the Parliament, that an implementation framework for all of these documents will be developed so that governors embrace the documents. And then when governors embrace the documents, they can now take the documents down to the traditional rulers. And then the average person would now understand his role in supporting the implementation of the counterterrorism strategy in the country. Currently, not many people understand their role. I mean, if we have time, I'll give you a lot of examples of how the beauty of this document is being defeated by the absence of implementation.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kabir Adamu, for joining us. Thank you for taking out the time to talk to us. It was very insightful.